Hey, hello, and welcome to another JP's Product Pick of the Week. It's me, John Park, JP, and I am here with a very cool little product today to show you. So thank you, first of all, for stopping by. Thanks for hopping over into the Discord chat over on the YouTube. Hello, everybody. So the first thing I want to do is say, if you're not watching the show inside of the product page, why not do that? It's kind of a fun little inception situation. There it is. That's the product page. You may already have a guess as to what it is. You will for sure as soon as you go to that QR code. Just point your device at that and it'll open that up into your browser. Or you can head to that URL that's listed right there. It is product 4600. And I might as well reveal a little bit more, which is this is our very lovely little cutie pie. That's going to be the product of the week this week. I've got one very close, so it looks kind of big in that camera view, but you can see there based on it's about the size of my fingertip. These things are tiny. So this is our cutie pie. So head on over to that URL. Watch the show inside of there if you like. Now, typically we will do a discount. Sometimes that's not possible. And in fact, unfortunately, in this case, this one is sold out. It's popular. I promise we're going to be making more of them. But if you want to head on over and have a look, not only can you check it out, watch the show inside of the page here, but if you want, there's a little button that you can click that says notify me when this is in stock. You can put your email address inside of there, and as soon as these are available, you'll get a message. I promise we're making more of them as fast as we can. One of the things you'll see about them is they're not very expensive. This is $6 is the normal price. We've done some discounts too, but I believe the price when these come back in stock should be $6 or around there. It's really a low price for what it is. So what I'm going to do is actually have Lady Ada talk about this a little bit. So let's go to the new and see what this board is all about before I get into why I love it and some product demo.
The star of the show tonight, besides the community, the customers aren't there. Our Adafruit team is Cutie Pie.
Cutie Pie. So this is, it's a little bit like a trinket. It's smaller than Itsy Bitsy. It's a cute board, and it so that's why it's called the Cutie Pie. It also has a STEMMA QT connector. It's one of our first little boards that has that. And that makes it great for plug-and-play projects that use any of our STEMMA QT boards. And it can also connect to Grove sensors with an adapter cable. It can connect to any SparkFun Quick boards as well. It's perfect. It's the perfect size because no other connector would fit on a board this small. So it's a SAMD 21 E18.
The thing is USB-C, STEMMA, NeoPixel,
Castellated pads,
reset button, castellated pads.
So it's got USB-C, so you can plug it any which way you want, and it's got a SAMD 21. So it's for Arduino's projects, it's amazing. It's got great support. We've written so many tutorials and projects and libraries for the SAMD 21. It's got 256K of flash and 32K of RAM. So compared to an Arduino Uno, it's got 8 times as much of everything. There's a regulator that can supply 500 milliamps of current. There's a NeoPixel LED here, so it's got full color, and you can turn off the NeoPixel with a power pin. It's got a reset button, so you can get to the bootloader, or you can reset your project very easily. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't even solder it. There's no soldering required to build most projects. You can just plug and play with any of our I2C boards, and you'd be surprised. A lot of sensors and devices are I2C now. So you get a lot of pins. You get analog output on A0, analog in on A1, analog in on A2 and A3, I2C. You got UART, which can also do analog, SPI. These can all do PWM. You can do I2S. You've got, one of each, I2C, UART, SPI hardware support. So it's very easy to interface with any hardware you like. You can play little audio clips in Arduino. You can control displays. You can just have sensor data output to serial, and then you can just plug into your computer and then use it within processing or Unity or what have you. So I think it's, I wanted to have a trinket-like board with a QT connector, and this just was the perfect size. It's based off of the Arduino Shao, which is the same pinout, so you can use the same accessories. It's got the same chip. But it's a little bit different because this one, of course, has a reset button,
Yeah.
NeoPixel, and QT plugs. That's why the layout's a little bit different.
That is Cutie Pie.
Yay!
It is cute. It runs Python.
If you want one,
Stemma.
pick it up now because it's gonna. We didn't notify
Yeah.
some of the sign-ups, and we will as soon as we're done with the show.
This new product.
All right, yeah, so there it is. It's the Cutie Pie, and in fact, what I'm going to do is head on over to my mystery cabinet and pull a fresh one out of the drawer, and then I can show you some demos. So give me a second to go grab that. Yes, there it is. That is the Cutie Pie. And I love this little board. So I think Lady Ada said it really well when she said it's a trinket-sized, sort of Gemma-sized board, but even smaller, running the same chip, except it's got a few really important adjustments to it. One, I love having USB-C on there. It means you can plug it in either way, which, as you may know, if you've ever done projects with USB or panel mount USB, sometimes the direction you can plug the board is really dependent on that cable, and it's a pain in the neck when you've got it kind of upside down. So it's nice to have USB-C finally showing up on some of our boards, which is really useful. The other thing is having that Stemma QT connector on there. So as you may know, Stemma is our modular plug and play, no soldering required, no complex wiring required board system. And as you can see back here, I've got a whole bunch of different Stemma QT boards. In fact, I've shown off 6 of these already on this show, and you can plug those boards right into this little Stemma QT, the Cutie Pie, so that you can connect to any of those accessories if you need an accelerometer or some sort of a temperature sensor, barometric pressure. If you want to use a little relay or a screen, you can plug them right in there, which is really convenient. Now you can use those little castellated pads to either solder regular pins to the inner pads or just solder directly to a board. If you have a PCB or a Perma-Proto, those little castellated pads allow you to solder right flat to the board, flush to the board. Now that's only possible when you have this in its default state. We do have a second state, and I'm going to show this on one of my project boards here, which is that little extra chip on the bottom there. Let me switch to a this big close-up view again and get in camera there. Let me get that focused. So you'll see this one has a little 2 megabyte chip that I've soldered onto the back of it. And we sell these for like $1 something in the store. So this adds 2 megabytes of flash. So your storage goes up from 256K to 2 megabytes. You can store much bigger libraries, more libraries. You can store files if you're doing things like wave playback. If you're going to do BMPs for a display of some kind, it's really nice to have that extra space, but you don't necessarily need it. And in fact, I don't think I'm using that extra space for anything in particular on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and plug this one in, and you can see this one in action right now. So let's take here's a USB-C cable that I have. I'll go ahead and plug that in. And what you'll see I've done here is I've got my Cutie Pie just sort of floating in the middle of this NeoPixel ring. I've soldered wires to the ring, but I've actually just hooked them through the Cutie Pie there, just because I didn't know if I was going to use it in here temporarily or permanently. You can see here it's got a nice, I like the ring light reflection better than looking at it straight on in this case. So I've got a nice sort of Tron looking Tony Stark sort of thing happening with some NeoPixel chases. And that is just running NeoPixel and Pixel Buff inside of CircuitPython. This board will also run Arduino. And what I also have is a demo I want to show you that's using the stock Cutie Pie. So it'll have no chip on it. This is not the one we'll be using, but it's very similar to that. It has no chip on the back. It's the stock one. I managed to carefully fit all the libraries I needed into it to do a few really cool things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch you to a couple of other views here. So first of all, let's head to this view here. So what you'll see is now I'm getting a little wild with the board. So the board's so small that it's fun to do interesting stuff with it. What I've done here is I've mounted it using some stovepipe wire to a little block of wood. A little block of wood has a magnet I embedded in the bottom flush so that it'll stick to things that are metal, which is nice because USB cables will kind of win the battle of holding one of these little cutie pies because the cutie pie doesn't weigh anything. So I've got this set up so that it will read the capacitive touch of all of these pads that I've pushed those wires through. It's a good enough fit that I get a good capacitive touch antenna sort of reaction here. And you'll see I'm using, there's actually 6 available pads for capacitive touch on the cutie pie. I have A0, 1, 2, 3, the RX and the TX. Those will all let us use capacitive touch. Now you'll see I've also got a STEMMA QT cable plugged into there so that I can use our little light sensor that we looked at last week. So that's the BH1750. I've just temporarily stuck that to another piece of wood with a magnet on it, so it'll stick here on my little sequencer sampler. And now what I'll do is I'll turn up the volume here, and you'll see I'm able to use USB MIDI in order to, let me switch cameras for you again, in order to play MIDI notes, MIDI note on and MIDI note off to this sequencer, depending on how I touch the different antennas, the different little wires there. And then I can also send some MIDI knob data, some controller change or CC of a filter value. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and turn up the volume here so you can hear this. And you'll have to tell me in the chat if this ends up obliterating you hearing me at all. This happens sometimes. All right, so there's a little impromptu concert. Hopefully you could hear that well enough. And what I wanted to do is show you in just a few minutes that we have left here what the code looks like for doing something like that. So I'm going to bring up my text editor that I'm using here, and I'll show you that. So what you can see is here is, 60 lines of code. Some of that's comments, some of that's spaces. So it's a pretty short little program that allows me to do this with the Cutie Pie. And what you'll see is I'm importing the board, I'm importing Touch I/O, which allows me to use the capacitive touch, using Simple I/O so I can remap some values easily. I've got USB MIDI and Adafruit MIDI, and I'm just using the parts of the MIDI that allow me to send note off and note on information, as well as the controller change. And then I'm bringing in my BH1750 light sensor. I set that up on I²C, I instantiate the sensor, I set the resolution value to something that seemed to work well. And then I set up MIDI. This tells it what port to send it out on. And here's the sort of key setup. I have this dictionary here at using all of my 6 touch inputs, and I tell it which analog in to use, 0 through 3, 6 and 7. And then I'm sending a note on and a note off value. I was previously sending color data to NeoPixel, but I cut that out of there for memory reasons so I could fit in my sensor. And then I'm instantiating all of those inside of this dictionary so that I can then call those easily during the main loop of the program. And what happens here is when I touch one of those antenna sensors and I haven't got it already held, then it's going to turn the note on. When I release and it doesn't have, or when it has already been triggered, I have that sort of state switch, then it sends the note off value. And then finally, I'm using my little lux sensor stuff here to sense that light sensor and then map a certain range of values, lux values that I found worked well, to a certain range of MIDI 0 to 127, or in this case 64 to 127. It's just like a halfway of a knob on this filter. And that's it. That's all it takes to code this. And you can see it's a lot of fun to add different sensors to this. I could reach back to my wall of fun Stemma QT sensors here and go to town picking different things to plug into this and try them out in this project, which is a music project, but you can use it in all kinds of other projects. So that's this little cutie pie. I absolutely adore it. Go check it out. We've got both the product page here, and if you go down and check out the product page, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find this show running in it and some other videos, as well as a link to the Learn Guide here, and this will tell you everything you need to know about using this little cutie pie inside of Arduino or CircuitPython. So I think that's going to do it for us for today. Thank you for coming and checking it out. It is a really adorable product pick of the week. I'm not going to put it on the Stemma QT board because that's for Stemma QT stuff. This thing is so little, I'm in great danger of just eating it, but I'm not going to. I know that's weird, but don't you feel like sometimes when these things get so cute and small, you just want to eat them? I kind of do. Anyway, that's it for JP's product pick of the week. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you next week. And this week's product pick of the week was the cutie pie.